Yeah, yeah.
Here we go. Look at us. We're doing it big time. I'm not going to lie. This might be the earliest we've ever started because there's no technical problems. Justin Trapp joining me. Buddy, what's up, man?
Hey, man, how's it going? Thanks for
Oh
inviting
my,
me.
oh my God. How long has it been since you and I have had a chance to sit down and talk?
It's probably been years, honestly. I mean, I feel like you and I connect ever so often on Twitter, and like you slide into
Yeah.
my DMs. But beyond that,
You know, little
it's
dick
been a
pic
long
never hurt
time.
nobody. It has been a while now. You and I have known each other almost 10 years. I mean,
Yeah,
we met, so you and I met, just so the people know, you and I met through the Cage Door and Legacy.
yeah,
I
yeah.
was running the Cage Door along with Richard Burmaster at the time when we first started it, and you and
And you're a big IT nerd. You're like working in IT.
I was a huge IT nerd. Thank you for reminding me that I was a huge dork. I had braces. Do you remember the braces? Oh God, there's nothing worse
That's
than being a grown ass man with braces, dude. It was awful. And then you take pictures, and I was like, nope, you need to delete those. I had a faux hawk and braces. Does it get any worse as a grown ass man?
it was good times. It was and we used to always like car hop together too. The legacy fights.
Yeah, yeah. We would hang out. It was cool. And by the way, I have a chat up, so people might be asking questions as we get into this and over the course. And so if I interject or say what's up to somebody, I'm not like seeing ghosts. It's usually in the chat. So just so
You're
you're
good.
just
You're
so
good.
you're aware. But Walt checking in. What's up, Walt? Good evening. Yeah, I remember the first time you and I met, I was like, wow, this is the only nice dude in MMA. You and Mick Maynard were like the only nice guys in local MMA. Did you kind of get the same sense that pretty much everyone in that business was kind of douchey, kind of an asshole?
I'm so happy for Mick. Mick's, the matchmaker now for the UFC, and it's great to see him on TV and working with the UFC. Mick was like literally one of the only nice people, good guys, like you're saying, and it was just like a slummy at a regional level. I don't know how it is on on a national level, but at a regional level, it's just a slummy industry. And it's really weird. It's like I always would tell people, they're like, how is it like you meeting fighters that are up and coming? And I was like, they're basically the equivalent of a garage band. Like they just, you know what I mean? Like
That is
that's the
so
only way I know how
good.
to describe it.
That is so good. It is. And now I will say this. What's up, Brandon? I will say this. A lot of fighters are good dudes
Sure.
if you pay attention to them, if you give them run, right? Like a lot, if you're like, oh, you're the greatest of all, then they like you. But once you're like, I'm not fucking with you, or I don't, I don't. If you don't show them any love, they're just not genuinely nice to you. They're very self-absorbed. Um, for the most part, I mean, there's some just genuinely decent fighters, good guys. But the scene was overrun with idiots too, right?
Unless you predict a loss, against them and like a cage doorpost, then they like get in your face and wag their finger like they'll teach you to pick against me again.
That was the beautiful thing about that is we would do picks and I would make you guys and most of us were at a gym or you and by the way Richard Burmaster has joined us, so we'll have to rekindle
Okay.
the old days when we all met and hung out with Uriah Faber. But do you remember that? Do you remember that?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Dude, that was like one of the first big things we did. That
And
was
he was
crazy.
sick at the time.
He
He was sick.
was. He was as sick as a dog, and
He
I'll
was.
never forget that he decided to do that seminar for all those kids and all those people that showed up sick as a dog, and it was one of the coolest things because at the time there were a few people that were more popular in MMA than Uriah Faber,
Yeah.
but he did it anyways,
Totally.
and it spoke volumes of the kind of guy he is.
And he did a little photo shoot. I was a photographer at the time, so he did the photo shoot with me after the fact. And I appreciate it. I don't think he ever even looked at the photos. I sent them to him. I never heard back. But the fact that he did it and he's like sick as a dog, I was, mad respect.
Oh yeah, big time. And I know Richard and I were kind of geeking out because you had kind of been, you were already doing some things, so you were kind of used to that. But Rich and I were geeking out a little bit. That was fun. That was the first big celebrity in MMA I think I met was Uriah Faber.
At that level, I'd met a few guys before that, but they weren't on like Uriah Faber level at that in that moment.
Yeah, he was like the sexy fighter that everybody wanted to hang out with or talk to or be a part of or whatever. So that was cool. But that it just reminded me when Richard popped in, and I was like, damn, the three of us did that way back in the day. So, but we did so much shit, dude. It was absolutely crazy. That's where you and I met, and we became pretty good friends. Then we hung out through. In fact, come to find out, you and I had more in common than just MMA. We were both serial entrepreneurs, which is also really why I wanted to get you to live chat with me, because if there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there, speaking of, Patrick Randall just showed up, and Patrick's going to be a guy that's going to be interested in this conversation because if you recall, not too long ago, I hit you up about a business coach. And it was for Patrick, and he's here in the chat now. Yeah. So it's a small world after all. But yeah, dude, you've always been a really interesting dude. Like the first thing that struck me as interesting is how good you are as a creative mind, photographer, designer. Did that come naturally to you?
I was an artist as a kid. We go to the library. I was homeschooled. And so mom would take us to the library and I'd find like drawing books. They always say that your hand and the horses are the hardest to draw. So I'd go find a horse book and I would try to draw horses. So I started at an early age trying to be creative. And I've always been sort of entrepreneur. I had like a lawn mowing contract at like age 12 with a guy. It wasn't my idea. It was his idea. But I was like, that's a great idea. So I started trying to do contracts, at an early age, get that money up front.
Right. Before.
And then feel the pain of it the rest of the summer. But
right, because you already spent it. It's hot as shit, and I ain't getting no more money. Oh,
yeah, totally.
Yeah, exactly. So but now you said you drew horses and hands was the hard thing.
Well, they said drawing a hand or drawing a horse is like one of the hardest things you can draw.
I used to draw hand turkeys. Does that count? Like I could, do a little. That don't count, huh? Why is it so hard to draw horses and hands? I'm curious. That's fascinating to me that would be a thing.
After we get out the call, you should try and draw a horse to see how far you get.
I cannot draw, dude. I have always wanted to draw. I remember as a kid, I was like really into army stuff, like military war, and I would draw these battle scenes and always stick figures. The planes and stuff would have more detail, but yeah, I couldn't draw worth of shit at all. And I always wanted to, but that just wasn't my thing. Now, you got into photography when? Cuz you did some pretty amazing stuff to be just, considered a local guy. Your work was on par with the what's her name? Esther Lynn?
Oh yeah, Esther, they do phenomenal.
Your work was on par with theirs, though.
Well, thanks, man. So that's an interesting story how I got into photography. I used to follow a graphic designer. He was a graphic designer, and I've been a graphic designer for a long time. His name was Jeremy Cowart. He's now a famous celebrity photographer. And I was doing a telemarketing gig. I'd been working as a pastor. We moved out to Mont Bellevue, Texas, like literally out in the middle of nowhere. And the pastor we went there to work with, 10 months after I got there, said, "Hey, we're going to Dallas. You're welcome to come." Thanks. And meanwhile, we're out in Mont Bellevue, out in the middle of nowhere. So
nice.
I got like a transitional job back, and I'm working at telemarketing. And I like to consider that period of my life the black hole of my life. It's a 2-month window where I don't remember much, but I do remember this.
Was it because of partying?
No, it's just an awful, like if you do telemarketing, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's like pounding the phones, 250 calls a day type of thing, and people screaming at you. It's an awful job.
Don't call my damn number. Like, right? Like I imagine that it was a lot of hate.
Oh, yeah, a lot of that. Sidebar. When you're calling, You know how when there's a delay and you can always tell it's a telemarketer? It's because
Uh-huh.
the system is connecting and the information about you is popping up on their screen. So it's like I'm having to start the conversation as I'm catching up on the details. So I'm like, "Hey, hi, is John Smith available?" So one time, it pulled up, and I'm like, "Hey, this is Justin from admin staff. Is Roger Clemens available?" And I was like,
You're like,
"That's
oh
just."
fuck,
And
what?
then it was like, and then it was like Rocket Promotions, or it was legit. Roger Clemens, a nonprofit or a business of
What?
his, and yeah, since it had him as like the business owner, it pulled up, and they're like, "I'm sorry, Mr. Clemens is out today. Can we take a message?" And I was like, that was Roger Clemens. Um,
Dude, that's
so
awesome. Is that the most famous guy you ever telemarketed?
that was, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Uh, what's the meanest thing anyone ever said or did to you?
You
I mean,
know,
I'm sure you got a lot of like fuck offs and all that, and don't call here no more. But what was the meanest thing that anybody ever like did?
you know, I don't remember, to be honest with you. There was just a lot of like rejection. People get really mad if sometimes we'd figure out a way to like scam the system so we wouldn't press the hang up button. So it would look like on our analytics that our calls are still going on. And so then they get to they like pick up the phone to make another phone call, and you'd still be there. That would really tick them off. Um, but that's my sidebar. So I found this guy Jeremy Cowart's website, and all of a sudden he transitioned into photography, and I was going, man, if photographs can look like this, I am interested. I would love to do this. Well, that was the week of Thanksgiving. That's like a Monday or Tuesday. Um, Later that afternoon, they pulled my entire department into the room and they said, hey, wrote like some numbers on the wall, and basically was like justifying like we're basically laying everybody off the week of Thanksgiving. So they laid us off,
Oh, that's the
and I
worst.
know it was crazy. And I'm going, well, what the heck? They did give me an 8-week severance package, and
Okay.
so I knew that I had 2 months, and there was a Black Friday deal at Best Buy for a Canon Rebel,
Uh
and
huh.
I was what? I just saw that site, Jeremy Cowart's new photography site. I'm gonna try and do photography. I'm gonna make a go at it, and I got 2 months to like get a client essentially. So I bought the camera. It was a Canon Rebel, and I spent literally like 12 hours a day on Flickr and Google, just trying to learn and learn and learn and learn. And within 6 months, I think I had a photo on the billboard. A pastor had hired me to shoot a photo, and they ended up using on a billboard. And then about 18 months later, I had stuff on like the shelves at Walmart and Barnes and Noble, and Fight
Really?
magazine stuff. Yeah,
Now,
for
see,
bad
I
boy.
didn't know that about you. That's fascinating. I didn't realize that you were. I thought, oh, he's just he does MMA, and I had no idea you were that heavy into the commercial side of photography that you had stuff on billboards and the shelves of Walmart.
Well, I'm a hustler, baby. Uh,
You are indeed.
it was just I was able to do it. It's kind of liberating to know, like, hey, we didn't have any kids. They're paying me for the next 2 months. They're paying for my education, and so I just hit the pavement 12 hours a day, just learning and experimenting as much as I can, and then the business side itself out. And
Yeah, because you weren't a photographer. Like that wasn't something you were passionate about at the time, right? You just decided you're going to learn it. And be honest, a lot of people don't go. You know what? I'm broke. I'm gonna be a photographer. There's
I would not advise that, by the way.
there are certain jobs you don't go. I'm broke as shit. I think I'll be an MMA fighter. I think I'll be a stand-up comedian. I think I'll be a photographer. You just don't do that shit. There's no money in it, right? Like, I mean, there is once you get really established, but it takes a long ass time, especially if you're out of work.
Well, I saw that there was this void, if you will. That was right around the time that I met Mick from Legacy. They were called Lone Star Beatdown at the time because it was an amateur show, and I saw this huge void of decent, not even good, like decent photography for advertising in the MMA scene. And so I thought, you know what, this will be my niche, if you will. Um, and so that's sort of the road. I walked into Gracie Baja, in the Woodlands, and I looked at like the best looking ripped dude I could find. I was like, hey, I'll shoot you. I'll get you some photographs if you let me shoot you for free. I'll produce them, and you'll get some nice prints. And the guy there was he was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. He probably thought I was a weirdo, but he did it, and
Right?
that's how it
She's
began.
gonna go home and jerk off to these. Who was it? Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you.
His
Like
name was
I curse up a storm on this. This isn't like the radio.
uh,
I curse a lot. I forgot to tell you. Don't tell your friends to watch. Um, I'm trying to keep it like I'm ask everybody in the chat. By the way, Patrick Randall, Eric Resendez, Santos, what's up, peoples? And Christian Sutton, what's up, Playboy? Yeah. Normally it's every other word is a. But I'm trying to be respectful of you, Justin. I hold you in high regard. So I'm trying to be respectful of your of your fan base and not curse in front of them as much. I mean, I'm still gonna say fuck a few times. Okay, it's gonna happen. That's one. I get like 5 this whole. I just wasted one.
jar.
The live chat swear jar. Oh, bro, I would be broke as shit if we had one of those. Oh my god. Especially because I'm drinking. You're drinking water, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm drinking crap.
There you go, passing time right there.
Yeah.
His name was Chad Kite, I believe. Chad.
Oh,
Kite.
it was Chad Kite. Okay, Sugarland MMA. Shout out Chad Kite. Now, so you just rolled up and said, "I'm gonna do this," and then you just hit up Mick, and because I was curious how you guys met. I never understood how you and Mick Maynard, which you said earlier, but I mean, it's great to see Mick as the matchmaker in the UFC now. Who would have ever thought that we would know like the one of the highest in command in the UFC one day? Although if anybody was going to do it, it was going to be Mick. But
Yeah,
how did you guys link up? How did you guys how'd that happen?
I don't remember exactly. I just knew that I saw their marketing and thought it was terrible. And the best way to get new clients is to insult them. So I just contacted them. I was like, hey, like I can help your marketing and your photography tremendously. And so Mick. And I'm at that point, that Genesis stage where I'm just trying to get work and experience, and I'm trying to prove the concept, right? Because in that scene, good marketing, photography, and good media, social media, like none of that had been like pioneered yet. Like it was just kind of thrown together at these like events, and so Mick was like, sure, and for a while I did it for free, and then eventually I said, hey, we're doing more and more events. Let's figure out a partnership here. And so I came on the team with Mick and like a retainer basis, and I just started handling all of the promotions and photography and whatnot. And I was kind of a thorn in their side at times because the fighters would just want to send me a picture that they scanned in Microsoft Word somehow.
Looking like some clip art.
That's the photo. Yeah. I would literally get like photos in a Word doc sent to me. Use this for the high resolution poster.
You're like, I'm not doing that. Your posters were badass, by the way. This is 10 years ago.
No.
And your posters now, would you download template? Tell the truth. It's over now. You can lie. You can tell the truth. You don't have to lie. Would you just go out and like download a template from like Theme Forest or Graphics River, and then just add in the fighters? Or did you come up with most of those designs?
I would say 90%. Remember though, there wasn't a lot of MMA templates. You know what I mean? Like
that's true.
It was new. I would say about 90%. I would just look at UFC posters for inspiration. I would look at Dream posters for inspiration. Pride. Mm-hmm. A lot of the Japanese artwork though was real abstract, and I wasn't as good at that. So, yeah. It's straight. It feels like a lifetime ago just talking about it.
I know, because you don't remember half the shit that went on. What's crazy though, Justin, is you think about like all the stuff that you did, all the stuff that I did. It kind of created paths that you don't realize. You always hear those sayings, everything happens for a reason. A lot of the stuff that happened to you, for you, and that you created for yourself has kind of paid off in the long run, right? I mean, you've had several businesses. You and I had this long talk about serial entrepreneurship and starting businesses and how many businesses fail, and the fact that who was it? Somebody said that they had a couple businesses that didn't do well, and I was telling them, I was like, That's the only way you become a good businessman is you fail at business over and over and over. Rich knows. Richard Burmaster is the only dude I know that has had more businesses and jobs than you and me. That dude, he's oh my God, he's had so many businesses, but he gets better at it every time. And that's the crazy thing about it. So for you, you had the photography, you had the design background, but then you did some other stuff which kind of has led you to the venture you're on now. Is that accurate?
Well, so yeah. I have a story. I'm trying to like filter
No,
it
don't
because I
filter it.
don't
Fuck
know
that.
who
That's
would be.
two. I got
No,
three more and a
no,
long ways to go. Don't filter.
no, no. I'm trying to think of who's gonna be listening.
Oh, who gives a shit?
'Cause I don't
Hurt some
want to.
feelings, bro. You don't know these
I don't-
people no more.
It actually. So my heart.
Text me
I
the
grew
name
up.
and then I'll say it. Let's talk a little shit, Jay. Come on now.
So I'd always wanted to be a pastor, and I just felt like God had called me to be a pastor when I was like 11. What kid? I just was an old soul, right? So I wanted to do that. So being in photography, was a means to an end, and I was passionate about it because I was able to do creative work. But my heart really wanted to like be able to like help pastors, help the church, or be a pastor. So, segue, Mick had actually referred me a potential client. And so I get this call, and they're like, "Hey, we want to talk to you about a marketing project." And this is going somewhere. So I want to talk to you about a marketing project, and Mick referred you, blah blah blah. So I roll up to. They send me the address. We're gonna set up a meeting, and and when I get, I text you the name, by the way. So when I roll up, there's literally Maseratis, there's Ferraris, there's Lamborghinis, there are Rolls Royces,
I remember them. Yes.
and and I'm going, what on earth? Like, I was in my little, Toyota Camry,
Yeah.
and I'm like having to parallel park between a Maserati and a Ferrari, and so I go and I knock on the door, and it's like this. It's in the Heights area, so it's this big house that's been converted to a business. And the door opens, and the young woman, who's got to be like 19 years
Yeah.
old,
Tits out.
says,
Just
"Hi, Mr. Trapp." Everyone's like dressed to the nine, And she said, "Hi, Mr. Trapp. Are you here to see so and so? Can I offer you a Red Bull?" I'm like, what? Yeah, and there's music. There's like club music going on in the
there's
background. I'm like,
EDM
what
going on and
earth?
shit. People are just in the lobby with those light ropes, just like it's a rave.
Everyone is dressed to the nine. There's Sports Center TVs everywhere. There's a pool table. I'm going like, what on earth is happening in here? And so they send me upstairs. By the way, if you watch, I believe it's Parks and Rec. Is it Parks and Rec? Entertainment 720. If you know what Entertainment 720 is, this is Entertainment 720 in the flesh, real life.
I don't. Damn it!
720.
I need to know what that is now. I'm gonna have to Google that while you talk.
My gosh. So
I'm gonna Google it.
I go upstairs, and on the whiteboard it says, "Is Justin Trapp the next leader of XYZ?" And I'm going, what on earth? Like what is happening?
Colt, run!
And so they talk to me, and they want a company meeting, come downstairs. And so they do this big company meeting. They kind of show me what they're about, their culture, and they literally give somebody 50 large in a briefcase as a bonus. And I'm like,
It's
I was
baller
homeschooled.
and douchey at the same time, right? Like it was. I wonder if that was all just show for you. Would you, knowing those cats and knowing how they were, do you think it was show?
No,
You
no,
don't?
no. Well, it is show, but it's for their tribe. It wasn't for me. It just happened to line up that day. So
Okay.
So then to promote people, they knight them. I literally have the video still on my phone, by the way. I'll send them to you. I save those favorite. They did wonderful icebreakers.
Oh my god.
Long story short, they offer me like $85K to work from home on this new lifestyle brand, and I'll get 5% of the company.
That's crazy, by the way.
yeah, I'm going like, what is happening? Like, am I the fall guy for something? Like, am I being set up? Like, that's what I felt. Like, am I being
Are they
set up?
smuggling drugs and I don't know that I'll be laundering money for these weirdos?
They literally like gonna make me this fall guy. So, um, and to be truth be told, like they were nice guys. They were nice guys. Uh, and I actually learned a lot. I only worked for them for like 5 or 6 months, and I just came to the point where it's like, look, guys, I I don't wake up dreaming about this. I can't get it. And they're like, Justin, just stick with us. You'll be a
What do you
millionaire. Just stick.
mean, bro?
And I was like, guys, I mean, that doesn't motivate me. I get it. And so long story short, it
So
just felt
you
like I had this idea to like help churches in a different kind of way. And that was
uh-huh.
sort of like coming up against like, this lifestyle brand selling hats. Uh, they
Let's
they had
see.
me running
Save
all over the country.
souls, sell jeans with white stitching. I don't know. Which one am I gonna do? What was my calling?
These
Selling
guys, they
knockoff Ed Hardy shirts or
didn't know what they wanted either because we would be in these creative meetings and they're like, Justin, that's a $5 million idea. We want $100 million idea, and I'm like, well, do y'all have $100 million ideas just floating around? Let me know. We'll pull it off. And they weren't even $100 million company. I was going like, what?
you guys don't even have $100 million. If I had the fucking idea, what are you talking about? Oh my
Yeah.
god, dude, their website is still up, by the way. You can still go and get their gear. I couldn't remember what the name of their gear was for, but it is still up. So if anybody wants some res gear, I'll just leave it at that. Just hey, it's a life motto. Just be ready every second, right?
There it is. Chasing
They
greatness.
they would give away the cash prizes for Legacy for a while. Once Legacy got on Access TV, they would both of the dudes would get in there suited and booted in the cage on TV to give somebody $100 in a gold trophy that cost like $3. You could tell that trophy that they went down to Harwin and like, yo, dude, we need 1,000 trophies, bro. We're giving these to fighters and shit, man. They were like, I was like, bro, you putting cash in that? Like, that literally looks like if someone won freeze tag at a 7-year-old's birthday party. Why are you using those trophies? It was the worst.
So I'll say, hey, bro, it was like such a like Twilight Zone, that whole experience. And I will say this: they're good. There's some good guys there, and I actually learned a few lessons from them, business lessons that I still carry today. One of the lessons I learned is I grew up poor. My father was a blue collar electrician. We were like homeschooled, one salary. We was generally poor, and I could say I had a poverty mindset or a poor mindset. So I'm just stubborn and driven, right? So I'm somewhat successful because I'm stubborn and driven, but I still have that sort of poor mindset pulling me back. And at one point they said, Justin, you're managing this like it's your business, not like it's our business. We want you to manage this like it's our business, not yours. Meaning, like, I was thinking too small. I was operating too small. I was managing it in a too small, almost like
Like, hey,
a
like,
poverty
oh,
mindset.
it would be great if I could go, like, just as an example, if you were going to spend money on lighting equipment, normally, right? Like, so you doing a photo shoot, normally you would be like, well, I've got these couple of lights at the house and I could probably get some bulbs at the Home Depot. And they're like, no, 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 no. Go out and buy the most badass light kit that any badass photographer would have and light the scene up, right? Like that was their mindset.
Yeah, and they no to them was not an answer. Like
Because money
they
was no
would tell me
problem
just
for them, right? I mean that's the thing. They didn't have the cash, and cash flow wasn't an issue.
well, yeah, no, I guess not. But the mentality though for them though was if someone said no or gave them a no, they would always say, Justin, there's everyone's motivated by something. You just have to figure out what motivates them to say yes. And that was their thing all the time. And that's how they would get people to say yes to all these wild, crazy ideas, because they would figure out what motivates people. And so I was real impressed by them at that. But it came down to, I was like, guys, I just don't wake up chasing greatness every day. Um, and I'm not motivated to be like a millionaire. Um, you know, that doesn't wait. Like they would find these down and outers, and they just like show them the cars, and then promise the down and outers like, you can be like this if you hustle, 18 hours a day type thing. And so finally, I just was like, you know what, I care about churches and pastors. I want to help. For every guy on TV that is a nutbag, that is some like wacko pastor, there is 100,000 of these guys that are just living modest, noble lives, trying to help and impact the community. So I care about those guys. So my wife came into the bedroom on Good Friday, and she said, I think I'm pregnant. This is right after I stopped working for this other company.
Well, let's just stop real quick. You walked away from $85K a year plus 5% in a company worth
nothing. It wasn't worth anything.
What? It was just all liquid, just all check to check, but the checks were big? Really? Where was the money going, bro? Where was?
It's a great question. That's a great question that I'm not qualified to answer.
Need to get City Under Siege on that. Do some investigative work. Okay, so you walked away from a lot of money and a lot of cash and potential. You walked away from a ton of potential because it didn't feel right. And that's a great lesson, dude. That is a great lesson that sometimes, especially when you come from a background that you came from, that money can be overpowering, right? Like you can be like, damn, that's good money for doing a lot of nothing and getting, if I want something, I get it. If I need a new camera, they buy it. That money, like that would be a dream job for a lot of people, but that just wasn't your calling.
Well, yeah. I mean, if I got enamored by it, it could make me miss something greater or something more purposeful. Or to be honest, I'm making more money than I ever was with them, right? So, you know what I mean? Like, I just couldn't get distracted by that. And I did feel like, I don't know if it was luck or I just felt like God allowed me it was a transitional season. I think transition seasons are so important. So if you're an entrepreneur or if you're looking to like start a business, the transition season is a really important, because sometimes what's next for you is not the final destination. You just need to be aware of that. You just need to know, like, transition from point A to point B, knowing B is just a transition. It's a season for you to get you ultimately to that next step. And so that's kind of, I view that as a pivotal or providential transitional season in my life. And it just happens to be very, very, very colorful with those guys. I do look back and just, I'm so glad I was able to experience that, because, I have these rich memories and sayings and t-shirts.
Lots of t-shirts and hats. Lots of t-shirts and hats. Boy,
lots of hats.
MMA is a t-shirt heavy business. If you could almost, like, in MMA, t-shirts are almost like cigarettes in prison. Like, it's almost a currency. And so, but I remember this because you and I talked about it, where you had the idea and you were going to do it. What's up, Jeremy, by the way? And Johnny Z said he had to go because his wife's not happy. Well, tell her to get over it. Whatever it is, Johnny. We're having a good time here. It's Sunday night. And by the way, Brandon, no, I don't have the coronavirus because I'm sniffling. It's just a booger. Okay. Are you happy now? I can't blow it out right here on the goddamn live stream. I almost cursed. I almost said, okay. So, I almost said the wrong word for Justin Trapp. Boy, that would have been, you'd have kicked me off my own live stream.
I feel like we all need t-shirts that say it's just allergies.
Right?
Wearing around.
The wife was coughing and wheezing and all that shit for a couple days, and allergies. So So suck it, Brandon. So you did all this stuff. It led you to the moment where Good Friday happens. Your wife comes in the room, and
She says, "I think I'm pregnant." I'm like, "Well, what do you
bye.
mean?"
No,
And she said, "Well, I took this test and it said I'm pregnant." I was like, "Where'd you buy the test?" Instantly I'm like,
I got it at the
investigative
Dollar
journalism.
General. Nope.
She did. No,
No,
she said that.
no
She
one
said,
does a pregnancy test from the Dollar General. It's like, yep,
she
you're
said I got.
having 3 baby monkeys. What?
Yep. She said I took 2 of them, but they were from the Dollar General, so I don't know if they're accurate. So we went to Kroger. I
Oh,
said, "Hey,
wow. You guys couldn't go to a CVS or a Walgreens?
Kroger was the closest thing."
Okay. I guess.
So she said, we'll just sleep on it and we'll go get a test in the morning. It's midnight." And I said, "No, ma'am.
I don't think
We're
so.
going right now." I wouldn't be able to sleep.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have the time. So I found the biggest bottle of water I could find at Kroger and the most expensive test, and said, "You are gonna take
Now,
this." And lo and behold, she was pregnant.
Okay, now let's put a pin in that and come back. You're adamant about getting this done now. Is that because you were excited, or you were a little apprehensive about having a kid at that moment in y'all's life?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't afraid or apprehensive. It was just like is going to change your life. I'm not going to sleep on it.
Okay.
I like to know my future one way or another. We had waited 8 years. We'd been married 8 years, and so we knew that we were going to get pregnant soon. It's like sort of, I guess, intentional.
Yeah.
So you find out you're going to be a dad, and it's like everything changes, right? And for everyone listening, once you realize you're going to be a parent for the first time, you have these conversations right inside yourself, like, who are you, at this point in your life? And so I had started having these discussions, and I was supposed to go on this missions trip to Madagascar in the coming weeks. However, my wife, she can only get her first ultrasound appointment while I was in Madagascar. So I'm in Madagascar. I'm literally, by the way, Madagascar is not just a movie. It's an island, the southern coast of Africa. It's as large as Texas. It's
really?
It's freaking huge.
I would have never guessed that.
Yeah, Madagascar. Yeah.
I'm so stupid. I was thinking Morocco in my head. Like, that's how big I was thinking. Oh, it's like Morocco. It's I don't even know if Morocco's an island. I'll be honest.
It's close.
Is it?
But not.
Is it not an island? I mean, I know it's not. I know it's not geographically located in the same area. No. I'm not Morocco. What's the one where there's the dude? They do the Grand Prix. Monaco. That's what I was thinking when you said Madagascar. I'm thinking an island like Monaco, which is very tiny. So I'm an idiot. Okay, proceed. I apologize.
So, we Madagascar is a very, very impoverished country. However, I did have Wi-Fi for 2 days of the trip while we were at this like hotel near the airport, near the missionaries we were connecting with. So I get to attend my wife's ultrasound appointment. I heard my son's heartbeat, bro, from Madagascar.
Really?
I heard his heartbeat from all the way around the world during her ultrasound appointment.
That's pretty cool.
That's crazy.
I know you wanted to be there, but that's pretty cool that you got to still do the mission and still hear your son's heartbeat for the first time.
Yeah, it was incredible. But, I felt like, for whatever reason, when I heard his heartbeat over the next 3 days, I'm driving like the bumpy roads of Madagascar, which, by the way, like the French were there and they kind of colonized it, but like in the 50s, they just basically left. So the roads, a lot of the roads in Madagascar have not been worked on since the French left. So it's just craziness, right? And I just felt like God was stirring me like, hey, if you're going to do this idea that you've had to like help pastors and help churches, you need to do it now. You have 9 months. So I started thinking about what would become my business today, of that whole trip for whatever reason. So when we came back home, which, by the way, Trey Nines, sounds so white right now.
Oh my God, I'm gonna drop my light. Yes, Trey Songs.
Yeah, he was on our flight.
I gotta get this fucking light fixed. Goddamn. All right, go ahead. Trey Songs was on your flight.
on the flight back from Johannesburg, and I'm like working away, trying to devise this plan. I fall asleep, and when I wake up, I still have this. I'm looking for the screenshot too. We are literally over the Bermuda Triangle, like literally over the Bermuda Triangle. I was like, is this a nightmare or am I really awake?
We're gonna die. I am never gonna see my son, and I'm dying with tray nines.
Yeah. So.
Oh my god, that's so funny. Tray nines. Okay. Oh my god, that's so white.
Yeah. So white.
All right.
So I landed. I started working on this idea, and so coronavirus is all the rage. Obviously, it's
right.
Once in a century pandemic. But when we were launching, so that was in May. We launched in October. When we launched in October, we had this big webinar launch day event with this somewhat famous pastor, and we were the number one thing trending on Twitter that day in the U.S. and in Canada. Number 2 was hashtag Ebola. So,
oh shit! You beat out Ebola. Look at you, Justin. You beat Ebola. Good for you, bub.
So that means we can beat Corona.
Exactly. That's so wow. So that's crazy. So you guys were trending nationally on the day of the release, and you did all that in 9 months.
You know what? So I didn't have a lot of money, and I went to a company that I'd done work with in the past, the CEO, and he's, they actually very, very well off company. They just got acquired actually for a lot of money, and I just asked him some advice because I had some people that I called on should I get investors, should I not? Some friends wanted to give me some money, and I just that poor mindset, sort of like those limiting beliefs, if you will. So I went in to ask him for advice, and he said, how much do you need? And I said, I need $35,000. And he was like, put together a business plan. I'll just give you a loan.
Wow.
Okay. So I put together a business plan, and I remember I was on a date with my wife on a Friday afternoon. We went and caught at a matinee movie, and he called me, and it was within a few days, hey, your check's ready, come get it. And,
wow. That's life changing, Justin. I mean, that's a
yeah. It was.
Now, is it because the business plan, or you, or a combination of the two? What made him decide, look, this is the guy I'm going to invest this money in?
I'll say this about Steve. I won't say his last name. Steve is one of the most generous people I know, honestly. He's the richest person I know, but he's one of the most generous people I know. And he taught me, when you have this poor mindset, this poverty mindset, sometimes I would be a hoarder, if you will, and I wouldn't be as generous. My wife is very generous. Steve is also a person that I learned generosity from. Generosity is contagious, and if you can be generous and impact someone else, someone's life, they will in turn do that. And so because he was that for me, I think he didn't want me to give up equity in my company, to answer your question.
Really?
He would rather see me get a loan and pay that back to him. And he I guess he weighed the cost. I mean, he gave me $35,000, but he's high net individual.
Yeah. So the risk wasn't,
No, not at all.
To him, it was nothing. To you, it was life changing.
It was life changing.
That's amazing, man.
For sure. So that was a few months after we landed. So I spent the next few months getting ready. We ended up producing 250 resources. We launched the site. So the idea is like a Netflix type.
Yeah, I was going to say, stop for a second and tell everybody what the business is, because it's a genius idea that you had. And again, going back to our discussion from earlier, you took your design background, your photography background, your business background, dealing with weirdos and coming up with ideas and marketing and doing all those things for the ready every second movement and all that stuff. You took all that and put it into this and developed what?
So it's called Ministry Pass. It's essentially, 90% of churches in America are less than 200 people. And most of the guys that are pastoring, guys and gals that are pastoring, they're wearing many hats. They're having to preach. They're doing hospital visits. They're counseling. They're wearing too many hats. And so we tried to create some resources that would really, really help them save time every week and put their best foot forward from a communication and media standpoint. So we created this library of resources, and then they pay to have access, like you pay Netflix to have.
Mm-hmm.
You're paying for access essentially, and we started that, and so we produced things called sermon series. So if a church does a topic, a themed topic, if you will, or themed sermons for 4 weeks on grace, they'll usually package it and brand it in a way that makes have a hook. So we create sermon series that are like that.
So you have prepackaged sermon series, and then do you do custom work too? Where if they say, "Hey, I wanna, I have this theme. It's gonna be over 2 weeks or 3 weeks." Do you guys do that, or is it all it takes away the guesswork of what they're gonna talk about that week or for the next couple weeks?
We don't do custom work just because it requires more humans to be involved, and we have like that would put us in the service business, if you will, and I prefer to have a product business where we have this well-oiled machine of product development and that team working together. When you get other churches or other people involved, and you send them stuff and they want to send it back, and that just slows down everything and bogs down everything. Interestingly enough, when I was meeting with Steve, talking with investors about getting some money, one of the investors told me something that I will never forget. And so if you're out there listening and you thought about starting a business, he said this. He said, if an idea has worth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like an idea isn't really worth anything, but if it had worth, a service-based idea is, and a product-based idea, there's two. A product-based idea is worth 3 times as much to an investor as a service-based idea, because a service requires more humans, and anytime you have more humans, it's less efficient. So for whatever that's worth.
No, that's amazing. That's great advice. That is great advice. So you get this kind of advice, you get the money, and you put this plan into play, and it starts taking off. And one of the reasons I wanted you to do this tonight is because you said something to me that was so, I won't say life-changing, because I don't have any businesses right now. I guess I'm a business, but it's not the same. But you talked about getting a coach. And anybody that happens to listen to this later on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch, or is listening now that owns a business, I felt like this was... Because the way you told, because I mean, I've known you for, like I said, a decade almost, but I could tell the way you talked about this, it meant everything. It maybe meant more than getting the initial investment and the idea and the business plan. I felt like this was life-changing for you, getting a coach. Is that accurate?
Yeah, well, getting a coach, for me, I'm not one of those type of people. Like my brother, he's like this brilliant designer. He read this is really dating me, but I just remember this when we were in high school. He read the Flash Bible. Remember when they were making
Flash
Bible
websites?
And everything? The Flash Bible was like 700 pages. He read that in like 2 weeks and was an expert at Flash like overnight. I can't do that.
Wow.
I
can't do that either. I can watch a YouTube video on Flash. I can't read like that.
I learn best through conversation. I process through dialogue. So for me, having a coach was a wonderful investment, to invest in myself. And you want to find someone that's not like in the stratosphere, universes away from you. You want to find someone that's a few levels ahead of you, because those lessons that you like, the trenches where you're at right now, that's still fresh in their mind, and they can help you navigate through that. And so, yeah, I firmly believe in getting a coach, a business coach for sure. It is a great investment, because here's the deal. You don't know what you don't know until you know it. And a lot of times coaches can help you see those blind spots and those things and those limiting beliefs that you have on yourself. It was like working with the rich guys. They stretched me. They stretched my mind. And to be honest, Barry, I don't know if I would have launched Ministry Pass in the way that we did had I not first worked for those guys. I may have launched something really small, and it might not be what it is today. They challenged me and pushed me and stretched me. And in some ways, they were kind of like business coaches to me.
Yeah, it's amazing, because it's so fascinating to me, because I tell this to comics, and it's so true of people that ask me about getting into radio as well. It's so true about anything that you do, but having someone in your corner that has been there and done that, and that you trust as a resource. And I don't care what you do. If you're an accountant, if you're, I don't give a shit what it is. But if you're trying to get better at it and grow at it and be the best you can be at it, having a mentor or a coach or somebody to guide you is it's just invaluable. And I know for me doing comedy, I had 4 people in my life that made me the comedian I am today, and it was Andy Huggins, Ed Blake, Billy D. Washington, and John Wessling. And had it not been for those 4 guys teaching me this business, I'd probably still just be an open mic comic that never had earned a real check. And the same thing in radio. I had AJ Hoffman and I had Dave Tepper who kind of helped me and have given me the advice that I needed to get better at it. And it's so important because those people, like you said, they know what you're going through because they've been there. And without that advice, man, it makes things so much more difficult if you don't have somebody like that in your corner.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I value growth, and progress is a value of mine. My wife says you're addicted to progress. For better or worse, you are addicted to progress. And a coach has allowed me to take steps forward, and it's been great. A lot of times people think, "Oh, I don't need a coach," or they think if I'm broken or something's broken, then I'll go to a counselor. No, I disagree. I think you go see a therapist or a counselor or a coach to help you get better, to progress, not just when you're broken. When you're broken, it's like a little too late.
Yeah. It becomes if you're broken, things that are broken sometimes can be beyond repair, and you've gone down a path that may be too difficult to come back from. Anybody can come back, but it's going to be a lot harder. Okay, real quick, before we continue, because we're going to kind of progress and transition, because I do want to talk to you a little bit about what you and I argue. I won't say argue, but we get into a little bit on Twitter. I'll take a shot at people, and you'll check me, and that's okay. We're buddies. That can happen. But John Parker said, I've always wondered where my church gets their stuff from. I couldn't imagine them making all those slides and music and presentations. I don't think a lot of people realize you've touched on something that's a real legitimate need for a lot of people, not just nationwide, but maybe even worldwide. Is there a lot of competition in your market right now?
Oh, I mean, sure. We just celebrated 2 million downloads.
Holy shit. No pun intended. Wow.
Yeah. In about close to 6 years, God has blessed us, and we've worked hard, to serve pastors and serve churches. And I do see downloads from all around the world, to be honest. It's quite humbling and crazy to see.
And you sit down and you design a lot of this yourself, and you have a small team that works with you, right? I mean, how many employees do you have?
We have about 6 full-time employees, about 25 contractors.
Dude. That's amazing to me, Justin, because I remember when you first launched this, you and I were talking, you were like, I think I'm going to have to hire somebody. And you were so nervous about that. Legitimately, you were like, I remember you being like, God, I don't know, Barry. I got it. Now I've got this person that's relying on me for an income. And now look at you got 6 people that you pay and 25 others. That's badass, dude. That's outstanding.
Well, thanks, man. It's been a fun journey. And to answer your question, I don't really design it anymore.
Yeah, you run stuff. You don't have to do the design, right?
When I do, I tend to frustrate people. Because the boss gets involved. Don't ask him. He's the designer. Don't ask him. He's got opinions about it.
The bosses are always the worst. You're the worst now. Everyone hates your guts, Justin. I hope you're happy. Everyone hates you. Jeremy Craddock on the chat said, Justin, good for you. My grandpa was a pastor and started 2 ministries before he passed away. He wrote books and would send them to Africa on different and other places as well. That's pretty cool. That's awesome. Albert wanted to know, how did you find investors? So I think you gave a little bit of that, but you kind of knew the guy, right?
Yeah, I did. And I had a lot of friends that loved the idea and believed in me. And that honestly, that might have been the scariest thing ever in my life to do, was to take money from friends, because you just don't want to let anybody
Oh
down.
yeah.
So if I could have any advice, if your friends want to give you money, it's worked out for me, but I don't know if I would want to do it again, to be to be honest, just because there's so much risk, and when there's money involved, people get really funny, man. When money is involved, people get funny and it can sour relationships quickly over money. So there are websites that you can go to. There are, is it Lending? Not Lending Tree. What is it? There's a lot of platforms out there that where you can, as a user, you can put your money in and then to be lent out to various individuals, and they sort of manage that process. It's almost like a SaaS venture capitalist, but you as a user can be a part of it. It's really cool. There's several out there. They do have
Oh,
higher
that's
interest rates,
cool.
like 12, 13% interest rate, which will kill
Yeah.
you if you don't pay it back quickly. But I would say, if you're wanting to start something and you have trust, not necessarily with your close family or friends, but maybe you know someone, put together a business plan and then approach someone that's got high net worth individual. Because a lot of these high
Like
net worth
Justin Trapp.
individuals,
No. You're like, please,
yeah,
nobody call me.
right. Well, there's some people that they're just flush with cash, right? And
Hmm.
they can't get 2% interest rate with their money in the bank. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they
Yeah.
just can't. And so you show some real upside on a short payoff. Um, that's just a straight loan. Some people will give you cash in exchange for equity, and there's that too. So always maintain a controlling stake, but there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. Honestly,
Yeah.
just I wouldn't say, there's a lot of possibilities, and don't limit what you can accomplish by just saying I don't have the money.
Yeah, and that's important. Is like you talked about earlier when we started chatting, was that mindset? Because I'm that same way too. I'm very pessimistic when it comes, and I think that's part of the reason why most of my businesses failed. Is I think small. I think nobody wants this product. I don't really. I mean, I think big in the beginning. Execution's an issue. Obviously, funds are an issue. But then I found for me, and this is true in radio, it's true in comedy, it's true in business. I found I'm my own worst enemy because I fear success more than anything else. Because with success comes different obstacles and problems in my life that I may have to deal with that maybe I don't want to deal with. Like I was given, this is just a good, and I think this is across the board on business too, but I can speak for what I know in comedy. I was given a spreadsheet that had, and you got to understand in comedy, we book our own stuff, especially coming up. Now, when you're Kevin Hart, obviously you have a team of people, but when you're Barry Laminack, you send out emails every day to try to get a gig, no matter where you can get it, right? And getting the email addresses of somebody that was willing to pay you to come do comedy at their club is a lot harder than you would think. People don't want to give you that information. Well, I worked with a comic who liked me and was like, you know what? I have a spreadsheet that has 600 bookers that book clubs all over the country, 600 different clubs and places you can work, bookers, agents, all that stuff. And he gave it to me. And this was 2 years ago. Do you know how many people I've emailed from that list? Zero. And that's because if I started the email, I mean, you think in the law of averages, 10%. If I could just get 10% of the people to respond to give me work, I get that's 60 weeks a year. I would fill up my entire calendar, and that worries me.
60
Like I'm
weeks
like,
a year is a lot of weeks.
I mean, that's 60 gigs. I just shut up, Justin.
Nah.
All right, I'm putting this up. I'm not drinking any more of that. But yeah, 60 gigs is that, and so it's almost that's what holds me back. And so you need people in your life, you need people in your business that don't let you limit yourself, like coaches, like mentors, and stuff like that. So I mean, it's when I was talking to Patrick Randall, who P. Randizzle is a listener and a friend, and he's also an entrepreneur and a business owner. And I was telling him, I was like, dude, you got to get somebody to help you figure out business. and help you grow. And it'll make all the difference in the world. And so I passed along the information that you gave me to him. And I just want to say he's in the chat and he was like, this conversation's got my mojo back. Tomorrow is a new day, my friends. Walt said, I agree, Patrick. Like, that's why I wanted you, man, because your story and what you've done is just absolutely amazing. Because I knew you when you were like, you're just a photographer for legacy. Just, and now you're the number one trending topic on Twitter at one point, and you got this business with 31 people working for you. It's amazing, man. I'm so happy for you.
Thanks, man. Well, hey, and I'm like you. I share that fear. I'm not afraid of failure. I will try anything. You know what I mean? Like, I'll do anything, and it doesn't matter because learning is a value, right? And anytime you can fail, you learn. But fear of success is far more strangulating for me at the thought, because it means that there's change, and it's almost like the fear of if I become more successful, what sort of criticism am I inviting? And it's like the unknown criticism, like criticism that you can't see is far more potent in your mind, or fills me with anxiety more than actual criticism. Because if you've seen our website or if you've seen our Facebook ads, you get some crazy people on Facebook ads. Like, that's a whole nother level of crazy.
Oh, yes.
Facebook ads.
Oh, and, yes.
But so that unknown factor, to me, I share in that fear.
Oh, dude, it can be crippling. I mean, it literally can. Like, I gotta give a shout out to a guy that's done this live chat with me. His name's AR Platinum, and he was like, Barry, you need to get on YouTube. Like, AR Platinum is a guy I had on. He's got a YouTube channel, 65,000 subscribers to his channel. He quit his job because he was making so much money doing YouTube that it replaced his income. And his whole channel is just, he scratches lotto tickets and people watch it. It's amazing. But he's hustled and he's built this, and it's a business for him. And he was like, Barry, you got to do this. And I was like, but I held myself back. And then finally, dude, only because I'm quarantined, I was like, all right, I'm gonna start doing this shit. What do I have to lose right now on quarantine? It's not as big of a threat. So it was like I needed something to give me the boost. And dude, it's been going great. I mean, I'm doing these live chats and everything else, but it was the motivation that I needed, and it took away a little bit of the fear because nothing else is going on right now. So those limitations, man, if you can get over that, sky's the limit for anybody that's doing anything.
Yeah, especially if you want to start as a comedian, right? You can't get booed off stage right now.
Oh my God, dude. Yeah, that's the one thing I don't have to worry about is no one can heckle me. No one can boo me. I can't not get work and get, turned down because there's no work to get turned down for. So it's great. I'm just out here, making stupid videos. It's great. TJ McLaughlin said, fear operates as an illusion as much as it does a real threat. And that is deep, and that's true. It's very true.
True.
Yeah, like you were saying, I make things way worse than they are. Way worse. Now, you and I need to have a discussion about religion. Because you and I, the only thing we probably don't agree on or that we differ on, and I won't even say differ because I tend to agree with your points, but I am so frustrated and so turned off by most of what I see, read, and hear when it comes to churches and religion and pastors. And I know that I'm probably letting a small minority of, what do they call them? What do they call prosperity pastors? Prosperity preachers? Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
I know I'm letting them skew my thoughts on this, but why do guys like Joel Osteen? Why do guys like Creflo Dollar? Why do guys like, what's that dude's name that was blowing the wind of God on the coronavirus? What was his name? Kenneth Copeland.
He looked like a villain himself.
He looked like the coronavirus. His head fucking looked like it was the coronavirus. Look, TJ's like, here we go. Yeah, H-Town Blue. This is, you and I argue about this all the time. I mean, we don't argue, but you correct me when I say some crazy shit on the internet. Why is this allowed to continue to happen? Because all of these dudes get money, they get followers, they get people in their church. And I mean, this is the problem that I have, and I know that I'm punishing, like you said, a lot of your clients, a lot of your customers who are mom and pop churches. You know, they're not making a lot of money. They're not living high on the hog, but that's not the ones we see. What is going to be done in the church community to fix this shit?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll have one answer for the big picture question, and then I
Okay.
have an answer for the Joel Osteen. You lumping Joel Osteen in with the rest of those
I don't
cats.
like that, dude. You're
Um,
not changing my mind, Justin. I mean, we've got all night, so you can try.
um, so it's tough because, like, for instance, right now during this pandemic, the media has not, like, the only pastors you see on TV are like these dumb idiots that are like, they're not going to shut down our freedom of religion. We're going to have 1,200 people on Easter and give half the congregation coronavirus. Like, these just like, I have no tolerance for them. But that's who the media covers, because that's juicy and that gets clicks, and then sort of this like cancel culture, outrage culture. For every one of those, you have a million pastors. There's the senior pastor, and there's like the youth pastor and the children's pastor. You got a million people that are serving faithfully, uh, and doing it quietly and modestly. Like, for instance, I talked to a pastor who has his own IT business. He's a bivocational pastor. His church is a church of about 80 people. He didn't grow up wanting to be a pastor like I did. He sort of fell into it, and he's in the middle of his life right now, and he's putting both of his girls through college, and he needs a lot of help, and so he uses our resources. And where are the stories on those guys, right? Because there's hundreds of thousands of stories like that versus the yahoo from Alabama that is gonna just I have a equal disdain for them as much as I do the media. Probably worse for the media. I have just such a terrible disdain for the media at large, because the way that they cover just religion in general and churches, I don't feel like is fair, if you will. I mean, it's just it takes the outliers and it paints a broad stroke with the outliers. And sort of, I hope that we as a culture don't allow those outliers, and because we have those a part of every part of society, right? The crazies in every part of society, there are the crazies, and we as people should not let those outliers speak for the whole. But a lot of times in the media, they do.
What I don't understand is the amount of followers that they get, the amount of people that flock to them. And I know there's gullible people in this world, but there can't be that many. I mean, dude, and this is the one guy that I lump in there that you don't, but the fact that Joel Osteen can fill up Lakewood Church, 3 times, 4 times on a Sunday and pass around the hat at the same time, that's so, to me. Now look, I'm gonna fully admit on this to you and everybody else, I'm not an atheist. I'm more agnostic. Okay, I'm more of like, if there's proof in it, I can believe it. Right? That's just, so I'm not saying I don't believe in God. I'm just saying I need to see more. I just need to see the work, right, on the math. But the fact that I feel like it's gotten so far away. If Jesus were here right now and saw Lakewood Church, in my mind, in my agnostic mind, he would shake his head and walk away. And I just, because it's gotten so far removed from what it's really about. There's a message, there's an intent, but I always feel like it's just for the next book or the next full congregation that they can take donations from. And that's just that's how I feel about it. And you know that. And I've made it very plain on Twitter that I despise that guy and the way that he operates his church.
Well, I'll say this. It's okay to be wrong. It is. And I'm here for you, even in spite
for me,
of...
you're not wrong.
No,
but you don't think, no. You don't think that if this was the time and he came back and he was like, all right, first place I'm going is Houston. And he was And he got here, and somebody was like, "Hey, there's this dude who turned a basketball arena." And Jesus would be like, "What's basketball?" He's like, "Don't worry about it." But it's like when they would fight, when the Romans would fight lions in the big arena. It's like that, and that's where they do church. And he would be like, "What? No, that's not my message."
Well, well, I don't know. I have so many responses because
Do them all. Do them all. This is great. This is exactly what this is for. Because I know there's people that feel like me, and I know there's people that don't. I know there's people that think I'm an idiot, and I want to hear both sides of this.
So I don't know Joel personally. I do know people that have worked for him and grew up with him. My father-in-law played softball with him on the softball team. He said Joel's really fast.
Fast tongue,
and
fast
didn't actually
legs.
talk a lot. He was real quick. This was before he became pastor. And they say he is as genuine, as nice as you can. That country smile that he has. He's been like that since as long as they've known him. As far as the offering plate thing goes, it does. Hear me out. It does take money to operate. The compact center in order to do those types of things, it requires money. Every church takes up an offering because in order to as much as I'd like to say that a lot of people donate, you'd be surprised that about 2% of people faithfully or tithe, if you will, of a church. It's the 2% or you could even say the 20%, the regular tithers, and just like the people that give every now and then, that 20% funds the rest of the 80. Joel doesn't take a salary from Lakewood. He does make a lot of money from his books.
I was gonna say it doesn't hurt that Lakewood funds his ability to be on TV and be in the media and be on radio or whatever else it is that leads to the book sales. So it's if anything else, it's to me it's brilliant business and marketing because he's basically getting free marketing.
Sure. I know a lot of the Joel Osteen. So I think that there's the Joel Osteen Ministries. I think a lot of the Joel Osteen Ministries, like if you go to Yankee Stadium, I'm pretty certain if I remember correctly, those are free. So, and that's not free to rent Yankee Stadium, right?
Okay.
And he's not getting paid to show up at Yankee Stadium. So they do take offerings for that, and that's how they're able to fund. I know someone that worked really high up at Lakewood.
Okay.
And they worked for the Osteens for a long time, and they said, "Look, they're Joel is tender, kind, super generous person. Don't believe everything you see in the media," is what he told me. I don't know him personally. I do know this, that Jesus spent time with sinners, and he spent a lot of time. And Jesus was criticized by the religious scholars and leaders of his day. I worked for a guy that was not considered, he would not consider himself a Christian or even, a religious person. He talked about getting, oral sex from strippers. He's the boss, right? And they're having small talk in the audio video van. This is when I was like high school, college age. And one day we were moving him. He was moving. And so we were doing a custom AV install at his house. And I'd been working for him for about a year. Keep in mind, he's just not a religious guy, doesn't go to church. Well, Joel Osteen was on the TV. And I noticed, I was like, that is so odd that Joel Osteen is on his TV. And it was on for I guess it was a Joel Osteen marathon because it was on for a while we were working. And I finally just said, "Hey, Jack, I just think that's you guys been watching Joel Osteen a lot lately?" And he's like, my wife started watching it, and then I started watching it. I think I don't know, it just kind of makes me feel good, and I like what he's saying. I think he makes some good points. And I said, "Have you been to Lakewood?" He said, "No, but we wanted to try it out." And my jaw hit the floor because that guy would never come to my church. Never come to my church.
Which, by the way, I would like to point out before we go any further, I have been to your church or one of your churches, right?
Yeah, you did.
You invited me. You invited me,
yes.
And Nora and I went because I'm open to this. This I have strong feelings about it, but like I said, as an agnostic, I am open to all information about this. Okay, proceed. Sorry.
So
I just had because you're about to destroy me, so I had to get that out there.
no, you're good. So to my point about like, would Jesus say, Joel is doing a good job? So Joel, if in talks of business, like if you've ever heard of funnel, right? The funnel, and the top of the funnel is sort of like your people get your leads or whatever. Joel is like the top of a funnel for any business. He's the top of the funnel for like churches and Christianity. Because if you notice at the end of every message, he says, "Get yourself in a good Bible believing church." He knows his place, if you will. His job is not trying to clean the fish, or to borrow a biblical metaphor. Jesus said, "I will make you fishers of men." He's not trying to clean the fish to get in the boat. He's just inviting everybody into the boat, and that's his job. He's not trying to get real deep, if you will. And so he draws a lot of criticism from pastors, pastors in my circle, really heavy on Joel. And I'm going, look, guys, like it's hard to understand that type of impact, citywide impact, which I know one of your big points was Darren Harvey.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you speak to that.
Yeah, in fact, I had a nice little bit that I wrote, the 5 minutes, that served me very well, about him not opening the church. There was a guy at the radio station at the time, Sean Salisbury, who was one of the guys that actually exposed the fact that there were people that showed up to the church that tried to get in because they had nowhere to go and were turned away. And at the end of the day, you can talk about, oh, well, there was water at the bottom. It's a 2-story stadium. It's a church. It struck me as odd that they didn't open until they had some reassurances from the government about FEMA relief and everything else. And that was the information that I had, that hey, there's got to be some compensation for this, because they're gonna tear this shit up. Is that, I mean, am I wrong in that, or was the whole thing wrong? Because it was a pretty bad look this isn't a joke, but Gallery Furniture was open before his church was.
Yep. And that's because Mattress Mac is a G.
He don't need no FEMA relief. He's like, let's do it. I mean, people were literally sleeping on the floor, and I mean, part of the joke is I talk about him having first responders and food and people. But see, to me, and it's not even meant to be funny, even though it is for me on stage, but that was more of a religious experience in what he did and how he handled it and how he responded to our community than the way Joel Osteen did.
Well, so we're making giant assumptions here about the behind the scenes, right? I do know this. Mattress Mac's basement hadn't been flooded. And the guy that I know, he's basically oversaw a lot of the Joel Osteen events. Like if they went to a stadium, he would oversee all the volunteers. And he oversees like 6,000 volunteers every weekend at Lakewood. He told me that they had worked with.
Wait, pause. So all that labor that they get is free? 6,000 people work for free every weekend.
Every church has volunteers, bro. Every church in America has volunteers.
Every church has 6,000 people that volunteer?
They have 6,000 people that volunteer. Well, they have like 35,000 people that show up. If there are no greeters and no parking attendants and, no people to watch the children, like, you know what I mean? Like, it takes everyone doing their part.
But Justin, this is the problem I have, and this is my mentality. You've got everybody that works for free. You get tax breaks galore because you're a church. You don't have why then is it so important for this church to have money? If everything is free, why does it feel like the message at the end of the day is always about what's going in the bucket? Because at the end of the day, there might be a message, but I feel like it's, hey, I've got to say something else, but what I really want you guys to do is throw some money in the bucket, because this shit ain't cheap. But yet,
well, first of all, churches haven't done buckets in like 20 years.
What do they just have, like a swipe? Do they have a square? They just pass down like an iPhone and everybody just swipes on a square?
No, it's just like you give online, like anything else.
What? So I don't even have to go to church. I can just tithe at home and be like, cool. If it happens, I'm going to heaven. I don't even have to get up now.
Totally. There you go.
That's funny. Okay.
Yeah. I don't. So I've been in a lot of churches. I do know that giving, generosity is an emphasis. I wouldn't say it's an emphasis every sermon. It is not. It is an emphasis most services because there's like a giving moment. Jesus actually talked about money more than he talked about a lot of things, actually. But if you're any church, it takes like our church, for instance. I attend a church plant in the Woodlands, and it costs like $8,000 a month just to rent the facilities. You know what I mean? Because we don't own our own building. And then you have the pastor's salary. He's bivocational, so he's not taking this massive salary. He's taking a modest salary, and he actually works extra to make up for it. Then he's got some staff. Like everyone's sort of like, you know what I mean? Like I haven't worked at a church that's like flushed with cash all the time.
Right. Well, the one that I went to, it wasn't fancy. It was more what I would hope that most churches would be. It was about the message. In fact, I don't even recall if they asked for money. And I think I even told Nora on the way out, money didn't seem like the central theme here. Now, Justin, that wasn't the first time I've ever been to church. And I've never been to Lakewood. But I can tell you that the churches that I had gone to, a lot of them, it feels like that was the central theme. That's a big turnoff for me in general. It's not. See, that's the crazy thing about this. Is it's not the message. It's not Jesus. It's not the Bible. It's not religion. It's man fucking it all up, in my opinion, and muddying the waters and making it more about the sins of man than it really would be the message. But that's just my experience. Now I haven't been to all the churches, so all right, I digress.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I had an old lady tell me one time I was sitting in a hospital lobby, and she was like, "Honey, you doing all right?" And I guess she could just tell I was in the dumps, and I just kind of vented her briefly. I don't even know why, and I just told her I work at a church. The pastors I work for are terrible people, and they are to this day. And she said, "Honey, remember this: it's God's house, but man's running it." And I thought, well, that's a great point. It's a great point.
Yeah.
And the point is that even if they have the title as pastor, even if they're a famous pastor, they at the end of the day they're like you and I. They're human. They have faults and failures and weaknesses, and they have noble efforts. I believe most pastors in America are noble individuals that are selfless, that give they dedicate their lives to impact the community far more than you would ever see. And to that point, there's probably a lot of good that Lakewood does that nobody ever sees. There's a ton of good.
I would be remiss if I didn't say this, and I don't want to keep interrupting you, but I'm trying to be transparent here because I know you are. But a while back I did a gig or something like that, and I had to get cut for a tuxedo. I had to get measured, and the gentleman that did it, outstanding individual, very well known in the community. His dad was a staple in men's suits in our city, and he's Jewish. And he said, "Hey, I saw your video about Joel Osteen and Mattress Mac, and I found it fascinating." And he said, "I just want you to know that you have the wrong impression about Joel Osteen." And I was like, I don't think I do. I mean, I knew people that were there. I mean, there's a lot of information that's come out. I haven't even mentioned the fact of his wife on the plane. Do you know who I am? That's a thing. That's a whole other thing. But he was like, "But Barry, what you don't understand is he basically, our temple was flooded. And he carved out an area of his church for us. And he allowed us of Jewish faith to come in and practice our religion in his house of worship for no fees, no charge. He fed people. He went out of his way to accommodate us. And I do admire that. And I think that needs to be said, that there are times when he does that stuff. But I think that the times when he doesn't, and the times that, you know, there's the other times for me that it doesn't justify it. But in the interest of transparency, I was told that, and I thought,
Sure.
okay, that's a very noble thing to do. That
On the
no
Harvey
one knew
thing,
about. That no one knew about, by the way, which was
sure.
to your point. No one knew about that.
And there's a lot that probably we don't know about. You know, relationally that happens. You know, that they're generous to, but also from as an organizational level. I know that for the Harvey thing, I was told the church had actually worked hand in hand with Mayor Turner in his office as a response to set up a sort of crisis center after the hurricane. And when it flooded, their basement flooded, sort of that changed everything, because if your house is flooded in the basement, we live in a very litigious society, and I have to imagine that you have executive pastors in the room that are like totally against that. Like, hey, until like there's just like lawsuits waiting to happen, or like someone drowns in the basement at Lakewood, you know, that type of crap. um, and that causes people to sort of change directions on. You know, I think what Mattress Mac did is amazing. I'd be curious to know that if like a portion of the gallery furniture parking lot was flooded or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, we just don't know, and so we just have these. If we're not careful, we allow the caricatures of people to to dictate the perception without really knowing the true person. And I think, you know, we can do that with any person, Joel Osteen or another celebrity, whatever the case may be. We all, especially if they're famous, they have this caricature, and Joel has definitely a very, very strong caricature of himself out there. And you know, I fair at times. You know, is the church perfect? Our church is perfect. Is Lakewood perfect? No. They probably, if you ask them today, you know, would they have handled the Harvey situation different? I'd be willing to bet that they probably, you know, would see an opportunity to handle it a certain, you know, another way. I don't. That's an assumption on my part, but I do know that I'm not having, you know, if it were my house, I'm not having, you know, us set up as some sort of like response center when our house is not in order. You know what I mean? Like, it kind of changes it. So, um, you know, as far as the money thing goes, I do think Joel is in a different ballpark than a lot of the prosperity gossip. Well, you know, you don't see Joel asking for money so he can get a new helicopter. Like, that's never happened. You know, I don't think that's going to happen. They do ask for money just like every other church in America. And it takes a lot of money to operate Lakewood. It does. It takes a tremendous amount of money. But I do think that they've done a tremendous amount of good in the city. When a mayor of a city calls upon a church to help in a crisis, that's kind of a good sign that like the church in the past or history would show that the church has been helpful in times of crisis and in times of need. So I don't know. I'm far less skeptical, but I also have these sort of anecdotal stories, if you will, that weigh into that, just like you do as well.
Do you think that, I mean, is he doing as much as his dad did? Because his dad, I felt like, was a little more now obviously the church wasn't as big, but it was growing, and he was growing his church. But I felt like his dad was, and I hate to frame it this way, but I felt like his dad was closer to the people. His dad was closer to the message and the word, and less about being a business and a church. I feel like he did the you know the missions more frequently. I mean, it just felt more closer to the word and the message. Is that an inaccurate statement on my part?
You know, I think Joel and John Osteen are very different people, with very different skill sets or strengths, if you will. You know, Joel was, if you know anything about Joel's history, Joel wasn't not thought to be the next pastor of Lakewood. He was actually very introverted, very quiet, um, and hadn't planned on being the next pastor. He was the guy behind the cameras. He operated their media ministry, and when he became pastor, he actually told his wife to cancel the the broadcast for that week because he was just so petrified at the thought of like getting up and just being a fumbling mess. It was almost like this David type of character, where he's this unbecoming character, and then all of a sudden he's thrown into this, and they had to like call the news stations or the networks back to see if they could buy back those slots because his family or whoever talked him back into it. And because of Joel's background in media, I think they just sort of grew, and that became more of a focus. And that goes back to my point earlier. Is like Joel is just wants everybody. He doesn't care what kind of fish you are. He just wants you to be getting the boat. He's not interested in trying to clean you. He's almost not interested in trying to disciple you. He's just trying to attract more fish into the boat. Like that is his purpose. To borrow some, a phrase from the Bible. It says we are the body of Christ, just like your arm and your feet have very different functions. Joel understands what his function is, I guess, in the body of Christ, if I could say that. He understands he's sort of the top of the funnel. He's really an attractional character to the faith. And then at the end of every message, what does he say? Get yourself in a good Bible-believing church. He knows that people aren't going to stay at Lakewood for a long time, especially if they're not in Houston. So he's trying to help them get connected to a local church where, growth and discipleship can happen in them. So he does get it better. I mean, I was told by a friend of mine they got other churches showing up, picketing and protesting. They had that one church come in and just start shouting in the middle of his message. And every like 5 minutes, someone new would stand up and start shouting in the middle of his message. Finally, like he told me by like the fifth or sixth person, someone turned around and decked him. knocked him down.
In the name of Jesus. Just shut the fuck up.
Yeah. Boom.
Punches for Jesus. I like it. Okay. I think what you say has relevance and it's valid, and I don't know it not to be true. And I know you, and I know you're not just going to come on this and make up a bunch of shit. So if you tell me that you know somebody that's high up, I believe you. And so hearing what you tell me gives me a little bit different light into Joel Osteen. But as you're talking, I can't lie to you and think and tell you that while you're talking, my thought is, yeah, but why the big mansion? Why the fancy cars? Why the nice clothes? That's not reality for most people in the church. That's not the reality for the people that go to the church, that work at the church, that volunteer at the church. So you see a picture of his house and you're like, what the fuck does this have to do with Jesus? What does this have to do? Why do you need a house that big, regardless of how much money you have? Why do you need a house that big? As a pastor.
I think that's an important question. I think it's an important question, and I think it's a great question. If I can tell you this, no matter how much money I make, I'll always drive an F-150.
See? But Justin, because I know you, and I know that to you, and I know I know you knew that coming onto this live chat, I wanted to hang out with you. I wanted to talk about your past and the business and all that, but you knew we were going to have this dialogue, and you didn't shy away from it. Because I know that you thought that this was an opportunity, if people are fans of mine or friends of mine, that they probably share similar beliefs. And this was an opportunity for you to have an honest and open dialogue about the church and about Jesus, and maybe change some people's minds, including mine. Is that a fair statement?
Sure.
But that's my point, is that I think that you're so much closer to what it's really supposed to be about. And then when you see, you can't help but think that guy's greedy and he's only in it for the money, because look at the house he lives in. Look at the cars he drives. That it goes hand in hand. You can't separate that. I mean, is that a false statement?
Well, I mean, it's not a crime for someone to have a nice house. He does, like, I think I read that his last book deal was like $13 million or something like that. I mean, his book deal, the publisher gave him $13 million to like write books. So, the church does give him a platform. I do agree with your point. so it's sort of like an indirect benefit, if you will. Um, you know, does he go around parading his mansion? I don't know. Like, did like some investigative reporter like take pictures and then it blows up? And it's like Joel Osteen, bad guy, makes lots of money, pastor. I know this. Like, I don't know about Joel. I would think from what I know of Joel and from people who told me, like he's very introverted. Even though he's on stage, he's very much, um, you know, doesn't like to do lots of interviews, doesn't like to put himself out there. So I don't think that he would try to like flash his wealth. I know Rick Warren. He's written like this first or second most popular nonfiction book of all time with The Purpose-Driven Life. And Rick Warren paid back every dime that the church ever paid him. And then Rick Warren gives away like 80% of his income. And Rick Warren still has a mansion and like one of the largest personal libraries in the United States. And he gives away 80% of his money. You know what I mean? Or 90%. It's something crazy like that.
It's a fair point.
And he still has lots of money. So we don't, I guess.
But so let me ask you this, and this is pure.
You don't know how much he gives.
True. That's a 1,000% fact. Do you think, because this is again just my mind, the way I process the information you're giving me, because I'm just trying to absorb it, and I'm not trying to be difficult. Is it possible? And this is, I know, going to be speculation on your part, unless you have some inside information. But based on what you just told me about the kind of person he is and how he shies away from the spotlight and publicity and all those things, is this perhaps driven by the people around him, specifically his wife? Is that why there's the cars and the houses and I mean, it doesn't seem like, I'm sure he would live nice. I'm not saying he's going to go live in an efficiency apartment in Fifth Ward, but I'm saying sure, he probably wouldn't live where he lives. Do you think that there's something to that?
Well, this brings me like to let's go back. Let's pull in another conversation that's related to this: the preachers and sneakers. You've seen that, right? Preachers and sneakers, and you get like Judah Smith and Chad Veach and some of these guys and Carl Lentz from Hillsong and NYC, and it's like, oh, they're wearing $2,000 sneakers, and pastoring is about the struggle. And a lot of pastors, I mean, I'm telling you, it was like a very heated conversation in our circles about should preachers have $2,000 sneakers? Like, it should be about the struggle. And I'm trying to go, well, guys, Chad Veach, well, you probably don't know who he is. He's a guy in like Beverly Hills or Orange County, whatever. The median income in the community where he pastors is $1 million a year. The median home value, the median income is like 300 something thousand. So the median income in Alabama, like Tuscaloosa, Alabama, or whatever, is like $35,000. Like they are worlds apart. And so I think in this age of social media, where their influence is basically endless because of the internet, it's really, really hard to fathom and relate that local pastor that's in the trenches every week going to hospital visits to these guys that have these global platforms, if you will, where they're influencing people all over the world. Like my grandmother, she watches Joel Osteen every week and loves him. Never been to Lakewood. She watches Carrie Shook from the Woodlands. Never been to the Woodlands, but she watches, and they give money because they makes them feel good and they believe, on the message that they're saying, and they've never been. So I think it's really hard to quantify unless you see. So like I'm Facebook official friends with one of the guys on staff at Lakewood, and he showed a graph the other day of the Sunday service with Kanye West. It was something like Facebook says like the largest stream of the year or ever or something like that. Lakewood. Like, it's hard to, like, a local church is having one of the largest streams in the history of a platform that has like 6 billion people or 2 billion people, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, there are things happening that are much greater than your local church at 200. And so I think with that influence and that responsibility and that reach and that influence also comes, there's money involved. And while it might not be my personal preference to have a 10,000 square foot house, I don't hold it against him either, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
It's fascinating to me, and I really do appreciate you. You've given me things to think about. You've given me a different perspective. Have you changed my mind? I don't think so, but you've made me think about it a little bit differently.
Sure.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you coming on here. I think this was amazing. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad that you were able to talk business before we got into that, because I feel like the first hour for anybody that's an entrepreneur, that had to be value for them, man. So I appreciate you coming on and telling your story. It was great.
Hey, thank you. And I'm happy to have this conversation anytime. And to be honest, you and I are both working on assumptions about him.
Yep.
And so I'm seeing the sort of like optimistic. I'm having optimistic assumptions based on what I've heard in the rumblings, and you're having these sort of pessimistic. Yeah. But they are both assumptions at the end of the day, right? And so
that's it.
Which is hard to, anytime you're judging people's motives, or there's assumptions, there are things that we can't see. And so I don't know, it's just always, I just hope that we as a society, myself included, because I've done this in the past, we don't allow the caricatures of people that we see online or Facebook sort of paint a broad stroke on the other people, the average Joe, but also, about them, who they really are. So I thank you. This is awesome. I love having this conversation.
I know. Here's what I'm going to do differently. Here's my pledge to you, Justin, because you and I are friends on Twitter as well as in real life. And you're one of the first ones. If I see something like a Kenneth Copeland, I'll retweet it, and I'll always be like, this is why I hate religion. And you'll be the first one to be like, hey, man, don't lump that guy in with the rest of us, because some of us just care about spreading the word of God and not that stuff. And so you always keep me balanced. You always keep me checked. And look, man, I appreciate it, because like I said, I tell you what I think, but I'm always open to the facts and the truth. So I really, this was great. And look, just so you know, the chat is, everybody's like, this was great. Very respectful. Another great chat. So TJ said you were very interesting, and I knew you would be. That's why I wanted to do this, man. I thank you so much, Justin. This was everything I wanted it to be. It was great. And I miss you, buddy. And I'm glad you're doing well. I'm so happy for your success.
Hey, you too, man. And the last thing I'll say is pastors aren't perfect. They're just people.
Amen. Appreciate you, buddy. Hey, I appreciate you so much. I'm going to publish the schedule for next week. I don't even know who is tomorrow, but I'll either tweet it out tonight or tomorrow. But Justin, man, thank you so much. What a great ending to a great week, man. Thank you.
Thanks, bud.
All right, we'll talk to you guys tomorrow.